Hello everyone. Today we're going to cover classes on PHP. But first of all, we need our music. Yeah, only for me, not for you guys. Okay. So we're going to create our classes using Notepad plus. Okay, so let's do this, boys. Let's do this. Okay, how do we declare a class on PHP? Okay, well, it's pretty simple. So what we have to do is write class and the name of the class, let's say user, and then we're going to open brackets, curly brackets, and then this is our class. Inside our class we can have a constructor. How do we define a constructor? So easy. Function underscore 2 times and then construct, and then we add these parentheses and curly brackets, and inside here we can declare our parameters. So let's have two parameters. Let's do par1 and then par2. Okay, and then between the class and the constructor we can declare our variables, or they call it properties, I guess. Yes, properties, yes. Let's say our class, our user is going to have two variables or two properties, which are going to be name and email. Okay, let's do this. So we're going to declare public. Let's do name first, and then public again, and then email. Okay, and since we have these two, what we're going to do is when we're going to initialize our object, we want to store this parameter on name and this and the second parameter on email. Okay, so how do we do that? So what we have to use in this case is going to be that this, we're going to use this and then an arrow and then the name of the variable, which is going to be just name, but remember no dollar sign, and then this is going to be equal to our parameter 1, and the same for the second, for the email. So we use this and then email and then par2. Okay, so this is our user class that's going to have a constructor that's going to have two parameters, and our two variables are going to be name and email. I think they're called properties. It's going to have two properties, email and email. No, mail and email. So how do we use this? So what we have to do is create an object or an instance of the user class. So how do we do this? So let's call this user first, and then we create our object. It's gonna be equal to new and user, and inside we're going to put the parameters, which is gonna be name first, single quotes. Let's put my name and then my email. Okay, and then in here we have our constructor this is our constructor, and then we put in these two parameters. Okay, now let's do something else. Let's print the contents of the first object. How do we do this? We do it by using the print underscore r. Why underscore r? What's this method about? This method is going to print the object on human readable form. So we'll see. So this is we pass our object as an argument, we save it, and then let's put some name to this. Let's call it U or YouTube. Okay, we go here, we type YouTube.php, and then we run this. As we see, our object, it has a the variable name has a value of, which is my name, Roberto, and the email variable has this value. So that's what the print underscore r prints. Okay, now let's create an object without the parameters. And then we initialize the parameters later. Okay, let's do that. So we declare second equal to the user class, and then let's say we don't declare any parameters, and then we're going to initialize the parameters. Okay, so what we do is use second arrow. This arrow indicate is just, you can only use this for objects. Okay, so we go to name, it's gonna be equal to, let's put another name, let's put Carlos, and then we do the same thing for email. Let's call it, I don't know, Gmail for some reason, and then let's print this. So what we have to do is print first empty line, and then we're going to print the content of this this content. We want to print Carlos. Okay, so how do we do that? So we just, you go here, second arrow, and then name. That should give us the that should give us something. Wow, okay, I know what's going on. And we have here the answer. Undefined variable, let's see what it says, line 7. Okay. Missing argument. It's telling us that it's missing argument. Okay, so here's the problem on PHP. Well, it's not a problem, we can solve it, but it's too much work right now. But what happens is that on PHP, if you have two parameters, you have to enter two parameters. It's not like in Java, you can declare later. So that's what is this about, you know. This is missing argument, undefined variable on line 6. Yes. Yeah, and then he prints the result. It's funny. Yeah, that's what's going on. For example, let's say that, let's forget about this for a second. Okay, we're going to do another example. Thing. Right, we're going to declare another class. Okay, we declare a class, no, second class user2, and this guy again is going to have two properties. Again, same properties as before, and then we're going to create an object. Remember that we don't have a constructor, and then what we're going to do is we're going to declare our variables. We're going to say like name is going to be equal to Carlos this time, and then an email is going to be equal to Gmail. Okay, let's do that. And then we're going to print that. First, let's print empty line, and now we're printing the content on the object. So it's gonna be second, and I want you, well, $sign first, second, and print what is inside name. This is what the last line is telling to PHP, and then we have Carlos, as you see. So that's what's going on. So on PHP you cannot overwrite constructors. That's the thing too. So because on other languages like in Java you can overwrite constructors, right? I could, write this thing again with just one parameter, or no, or with no parameters, and we're going to be able to handle it. But on PHP, no. But there is a way to do it using a switch statement. But we're not going to do this because we're covering here just the basics. Okay. So so what we did is we now know how to declare a class. We know how to declare an object, create an object. We know how to access to the properties of an object and how to print them. And now we're going to clone objects. Okay, so how do we clone objects? So we just have to use the clone keyword. Let's do ter is equal to clone second. And then let's see what's going to happen if we try to print something. Print what is inside the name property of ter. Okay, so let's do ter arrow because it's an object, and then we should get Carlos. Bling, Carlos. Okay, so that's good. We're cloning that. We just cloning an object, and now let's see what happens if we change this. We change this to another name. Let's change this to John, and then let's print So what we're doing is we're overriding what is stored inside the name property of object ter. See, we already writing. And let's see what is inside. Let's do this. Another empty line over here, and then let's see what is inside the email property. Remember, don't put $signs. Gmail. See, so what we have here is like we have an object, and when it's cloned, it's going to have a reference to its properties, but it also, if you change one of its properties, it's going to maintain, it still is going to maintain a relationship between the other properties of the object. So that's what's going on here. Okay, so we cover constructors, and now let's do something else. Okay, inside this class, or this class that has a constructor, what we're going to do is we're going to create methods. Okay, so how do we create a method? Yeah, we use function, and then let's create a method display name. And what is going to happen? Display name, or this display name. Yeah, let's do just display name for now. So what's going to happen is that this property is going to print name. And then how do we have access to this property over here? So what we have to use is, I think, this. Okay, let's see what happens. So this is for the user class. This is the second. Let's put and then we have one object, defined as of using the user class. Okay, so first, so how do we call a method? What we have to use is just put the name of the method, error, and then the name of the method. And we have to print an end line, and let's do this. So that's how we have access. So this keyword let us have access to this property, but we have to make sure that this is declared public, because if this is a static property, we're going to have to do something else. Okay, so let's do that now. Let's declare a static method. So what do we need? Static method. Static methods they don't need to be called by an object. They are called by the class. Okay, so let's create a static method. How do we create a static method? Easy, just write static name of the function. Let's do something with this function. Okay, let's print something like what's the name of this function? Display tool. Okay, I'm not very creative, so let's display tool, and this function is going to print a static method. Okay, and then let's see what happens when our object, which was created, which is an instance of the user class, tries to have access to the static method. we should get an error, but no, we don't get an error. So that means that our object can call the static method. But let's and also static methods are important because they can only use inside this class, inside the user class. They cannot be used outside the user class. Okay, for example, if class 2 wants to have access to user 2 wants to have access to this static class, it's not going to happen. But let's do something else. Let's see what happens if we call it differently. So let's see if we use the user class, we write 2 colons, and then we try to display let's see if we have an access. We have an access, and yes. So there are 2 ways to access to a static method. You can use this. You can use an object accessing a static method, and also you can have a class accessing a static method. Okay, so we can call it 2 ways. And now let's have let's have a static variables, static properties. Let's say with this static time, okay, per hour. So let's store something like it is 5, and then let's say that we want to have access to this static variable. How can we have access to the static variable? We can have access, we can use static method to have an access to a static variable. So let's use the static function, and then get our, and how do we have access to static variables? This is for public variables. In order to have access for a static property, we're going to have to use self to colons, and then the name of the property. Okay, and then let's go to let's call it. Let's see what happens. Have to put echo, and then we have access to static variables. Let's say that we want to have this static variable. Let's say that we want to access it by regular method. Let's say function get our tool. Okay, and then let's use this. let's see if a regular method can have access to a static variable. Then we go here, we copy all this, and then we put 2. Boom. Non-static method. So that's what's going on. But still, I have the I have an error, because it's saying here a non-static method user should not be called statically. So how can we do this? We have to use the object to have access. So if we use our object first, and then we go and use this, we should have access. We shouldn't have an error. Let's see. Boom. And then this time we don't have an error. So here we have access an object has access to static variable, to static property. And here actually static. Okay, now let's have another property. Let's have a constant property, which is gonna be, let's call it year, because it's not going to change. Okay, and let's say that year is gonna be equal to 2018. Now how can we access to, how can a method have access to this constant variable? Because this is not a static variable, it's not a public, it's constant. So in order to have access, we're going to have to use this. And I think we can have access to this variable with static functions and with non-static functions. Let's try it. Let's see what. So let's try static function display 3, and then echo something like this, that instead of hour it's gonna be year. And then since it's static, we have to call it using the class. This line 6, problem on line 6. It says syntax errors, unexpected year. Expecting identifier. I guess it's asking something like this. Still unexpected cons. So what's going on here? Let's save it and let's try again. So we should get another error. This is syntax error, unexpected year, expecting identifier string, and in line 6. What's going on? How can we have access to constant values? We don't have to use this, maybe. Access to undeclared static property user This is access to an undeclared static property user the year and static. What if we do this? Even though it also we have to have this, okay? And then let's make another static, and then we call that object. We call it with an object. Still, it's having error. Expecting identifier. I don't know what's going on here. Expecting identifier. I have my book here, and let's see what it says. That's strange. I guess it's correct. Okay. It's not correct. When you declare constants, you don't need this. We don't need that $sign when we declare constants. But it says fatal error on line 25. What's here? I guess we'll have to call it like this. Right. Boom. Okay. We solve it. Bling. Okay. So let's recap. So when you declare constant variables, and the convention is to use all capital letters. So year like this, and year like this. Okay. And then again, no errors. Okay. And then how do we call this? So we don't use the $sign, and we just call using the self keyword, which is the same for static variables as we did here for our. And then we use the object to call it, and let's use the class to call it. Can we do that? No, but it's not a static variable, so it's not going to work. But what happens if we declare a static? Let's do that, static, and then let's copy all this, and we're just going to change the name, and we want to call this for with, and we use the class to call it. Boom, the same. So we can have access to these properties, constant properties, by we can call it using an object or using the class. Of course, for when you're using an object, you have to make sure you're using this arrow, and when you're using a class, two columns. Okay, so I think that's gonna be it for classes for PHP, and thanks. See you next time.